I met you at like face to face at California Range Weekend just this last November. And I've been following the company for quite some time, and I hear very good things about it. And I don't have a lot of products, right? I have some firearms and I have a few basic things.
Yeah.
And I don't have any of your products. But what I see is this constant release of new ideas, new products, innovation. And when I met you, what shocked me is like, you're like a one-man operation. Like you're doing this all by yourself. I mean, when I compare or contrast across the industry, and I see all the other gear companies out there, and I'm not sure that's how you're categorizing yourself, so I apologize.
No,
that's
yeah,
an insult.
That's the truth.
To think that what you're doing with your company right now, it was started and you know, it's growing, and you shared with me some stuff, and we can talk about that today. But I was shocked, and it was really impressive, and I got to spend about 15, 20 minutes with you kind of going through. I'm going to go time this conversation out. We got to get this on air for all those entrepreneurs out there, for all those small business owners out there, for all those people that, you know, spend a lot of time on Instagram and make a lot of assumptions. I think you're going to clear a lot of things up for us today.
Yeah,
and I can't wait. Yeah.
I think a lot of people will be shocked.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that do know that, at least people in the industry kind of have an idea, but yeah, I have one employee right now. She's actually family, but we've hired her on, and she's a mother of 2 kids, you know, so she helps us with shipping, and I've been training her on how to sew for about a year. And so we'll do, you know, I put her up with a sewing machine, so she has a Juki walking foot in her home. And, you know, I go over training and stuff like that. And now that I got a laser and a webbing cutter and stuff, like it just allows her some flexibility to work on her off time, make some money. And also she comes out and helps us with shipping. So like, you know, we've got products going out every day while I'm at SHOT Show.
It's a good thing.
It's nice. It's nice to know that
the business is going.
Things are still moving while I'm out of the shop, you know?
I do know, because I have a business as well, and it's not, you know, it's outside of here. And I do understand, and any business owner will tell you that first hire, you know,
yeah,
a lot of times is family, but it's also the most important one.
Yes.
I mean, you're now starting to give up your baby and your trust a little bit, if you will, to and putting it in the hands of somebody else. So I know what a big undertaking that is, but I also know that how important it is, and how relieving it can be. Also, how frustrating it can be sometimes when,
of course,
something's in your head. Like, and maybe you didn't communicate it clearly or whatever else. And it's a learning experience.
Yeah, there's, of course, just like with any employee, you know, you have to be patient, and there's some training involved. But she's been great. And it's nice to have someone who we know and trust, you know, because it's my shop is at my home. And so, like, you know, when my wife's there with the kids, you know, she's family. So it's, you know, makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does make a big difference. And I mean, we just jumped right into this. We talked about cutting, we talked about sewing, we talked about, you know, shipping, and we talked about you being here at SHOT Show. Let's talk about Tracer. Yeah. Tell us about Tracer, man.
Tracer was an idea that I had about 3 years ago. I come from a security background. I'm a former infantry Marine. I was active duty from 2002 to 2006. And I learned how to sew when I was a kid, but it's not like I've been sewing for a long time. Like, you know, in between, you know, when I was a teenager to now, I haven't been sewing at all, actually. I've done a little bit of, like, you know, making ghillie suits and stuff for friends when I was active duty. And when I was, you know, in high school, I got into the whole paintball airsoft thing. So I made some, like, pouches and stuff and modified some gear.
Is that where the sewing started for you?
Yeah. So, like, when I was like 8 years old, my mom was sewing all the time. Like, she had a little sewing, like, corner, like, in the living room. So the machine was, like, right there. And she'd just be, like, working on stuff, like, in front of like, while she's watching TV and stuff, you know? So it was like growing up, it was just normal for, like, the sewing machine was, like, in the corner, and it was, like, there, you know?
I kind of do know, actually. Real quick, where did you grow up?
So I was born and raised in Whittier.
Okay, so you're a California kid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Born and raised in Southern California. I only lived out of California for 2 years when I was in D.C. With the Marine Corps. And then I got stationed back in Pendleton for 2 years. So I was...
Basically.
Yeah.
You're basically California homegrown.
Grew up surfing and skating and snowboarding. And, I was doing a lot of skateboarding in high school and snowboarding. And I started surfing when I was like 11. So I was really comfortable in the water.
People listening that aren't from California go, it figures. Like they all think we all do that. I mean, we don't, but
but I did. I played hockey and stuff when I was a kid. But when I got into like middle school, I like dropped all team sports and just wanted to focus on skateboarding. And then when I started getting later on in high school, like when I was a sophomore, that's when like the military bug kind of hit me, and I knew I wanted to join the military, and so I joined swim team, and because at the time I wanted to be a SEAL, so I was surfing all the time. I was on swim team. In the first year I did swim team, I wasn't actually on the swim team. I actually just asked the coach if I could swim with the team, and he was like, because I wasn't actually in the class, he was just like, he's like, you can get in the pool, but if you stop, you're out of here. So I was like, all right. So I just, kept moving. And as long as I didn't stop, I could be in the pool. So I guess don't disrupt traffic. You know what I mean?
Right,
so my parents moved to La Habra Heights when I was in high school. And so I went from, being in Whittier, which is like the next city over, to La Habra Heights. And I think we lived like 3 or 4 miles up a hill. And so sometimes after swim practice, I would actually run home with my backpack.
Yeah, so you're a motivated kid.
Yeah.
You knew what you wanted.
My friend had a community pool, and during the summer, I used to like put a backpack on and I would run down to his house, and then we'd just like be in the community pool all day long, like throwing chairs in the pool, swimming underneath the chairs, tying knots on the chairs, because we want to be Navy SEALs, you know what I mean? So like we were just playing in the pool all day.
Yeah, exactly. It's play, but it's like
seeing how long we could hold our breath, how many times we can go back and forth underwater. You know what I mean? Just like I was scuba certified when I was in high school and did some diving, and I wanted to be a SEAL. So.
I think there's a lot of people that can relate to that listening to the show. I mean, and you grew up in an era, right, where
at the time there was a SEAL Challenge program.
Yeah,
and this was
you're being marketed to.
Yeah, this was 1990. This was like 1999 to 2001 was when I was like, I want to be a SEAL.
Yeah, I mean, everybody did then.
Yeah.
Like this is the movie, like Charlie Sheen, like all that stuff.
Watching Navy SEALs was like, I was like, I want to do that. And then The Rock, like watching like The Rock is still one of my favorite movies.
Such an underrated movie too, by the way.
Yeah, you watch it today on Blu-ray.
Holds up.
It's so good.
Holds up, yeah, I agree.
The whole infiltration scene is so good. Like that's one of my all-time favorite movies.
Yeah, again, I think a lot of people listening go, yeah, that was me too. Yeah.
The music is good. Everything is just awesome about that movie.
But that's the dream, right? And then there's the realities of like, how does all that happen?
Yeah.
Were you, going in and sort of just entry into the military, like, were you educated? Had you done research on that? Like, how do I do this and get there the fastest? And I mean, you seem like a pretty planned kind of organized
so like
dude.
at like 16, that's when like I first saw I had this old VHS tape about special operations. It was like a Discovery Channel special about special operations.
Seen it probably, yeah.
Yeah, and my friend loaned it to me, and I watched it like 100 times.
Until
you know what I mean?
out,
And at first, the thing that really like sparked my interest about the military was they had a feature on like Ranger School, and they were showing all this B-roll about guys going through Ranger School and stuff. And I was like, I was like, yep, okay, like that's I was like, I got to a point where I was like, if I don't join the military, I'm gonna regret it for like the rest of my life. I just was driven to do that. And then obviously, it changed a few times. I was like, and talking with other, kids in high school, they're like Rangers. No, you should be a Navy SEAL. Like, have you seen what the SEALs do? And then I learned about BUDS, and then I found out about BUDS, and I was like, oh man, I was like, that's 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
and then the cold and wet factor, like that was like, oh, dude. And then like, it was a voluntary drop program, got to ring the bell. There was just like that psychological, like that mental toughness aspect that I think some of the other programs were like lacking in. And so I was like drawn to that. And I was like, I'm already comfortable in the ocean. Like I'm started surfing when I was like 11. And then that's what really motivated me to join the swim team, get, involved in diving and get scuba certified and stuff like that. And so I did some, open water dives when I was like 16, off the coast of California, which is really crappy diving. You can't see anything.
Right. The visibility is like
you go down 10 feet and you can't see the surface. Right. You know what I mean? It's not fun, really. It's just, there was some sketchy
I'm sure
moments where you're just like, why am I doing this? You know what I mean? You can't see anything. I'm in a dark
like
room.
The Keys or,
No.
Like that.
My wife and I had we had our honeymoon in Bora Bora. So I got to do some like snorkeling in Bora Bora. So like after like experiencing the water in Tahiti versus California, I was like, man, I really wanted to dive, you know what I mean? Because it was awful.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I thought I wanted to be scuba certified when I was a kid, and then I realized how far you have to go to get really good diving. And I grew up in the Bay Area, and a lot of people, they go out to Monterey Bay Area because there's a lot of wildlife and things to see out there. There's also a lot of sharks out there. But it's a given. It's a hit and miss thing. You can get like 1 or 2 days of really good visibility, but the remainder of the time it's usually not very good. I'd say
the best experience I had in California was when we went out to Redondo, and it was a decent, I guess the conditions were good. And so we went to the kelp beds.
Yep.
And so we got to like dive through the kelp beds, and there was like a bunch of California groupers. And, we got to like swim through some schools of fish and like swim through the kelp, and the visibility was decent. So
that was the highlight.
Felt cool. I was like, yeah, this is cool.
I've arrived.
Yeah.
I hear that, the wheels are turning all the time. Is that where the airsoft thing came in? Because we were talking about the sewing.
Yeah. So I actually first got into paintball, and then it wasn't until my friend told me about airsoft guns that I learned about. I had no idea what airsoft was. It was like really big in Japan at the time. This is like 1998, 1999. And so then we started like, the internet was still kind of new. Like there was no smartphones, obviously. Like you had to like go online. When I was in high school, I had a dial-up modem, to get online.
I wasn't too far before you, so I remember well, yeah.
So like you get online, and then now like you go to like, there was a couple of websites we'd go to, and they sold airsoft guns and stuff. So like, we like found where you can order them, and like we ordered them, and you have to like wait for customs, and like you get them, and then like
it was a different day. Yeah.
They come with the orange tips, and so you get nail polish remover, and you remove the orange tip, and then you like spray paint it and stuff, and then we found some local teams out in Riverside that were like getting together and playing. And there was like an indoor place where you could do like CQB stuff. And then there was like the outdoor fields where they like play these organized games, like 30 to 50 guys get together.
Like Milsim type stuff.
Yeah. It was really fun. It was like, guys in tan versus guys in green. And like, they would just break up the teams and play. The only experience I had to paintball was like really cheap like pump guns that my brothers and I would play. We'd just go shoot each other in the backyard because my parents have an acre.
Okay.
So they got like an acre of property
in Whittier?
La Habra Heights.
Oh, that's right. You said
my parents have horses and chickens.
Okay.
And at one time they had like goats, and they had like alpacas. I was constantly surrounded by animals as a kid. So like a little mini farm, which is really weird for people, especially coming from Southern California. Most of Southern California is like suburban and stuff, but my parents have an acre, and it's just very little usable property. Most of it, it's like this little area for the horses and the animals, and then it's just this massive hill that just goes up this hill.
So you're talking about the animals, and it's kind of like mini farm life, kind of thing. But you're also talking about the sewing machine, right? That was in the corner, and Mom used to use, and talking about the sewing, and it's interesting. My mom did a lot of that when I was young too, and that's not what the other moms were doing.
Yeah.
And I moved to California when I was, about 8 or 9 years old. I started there, moved away, and come back, and we lived in some areas where sewing was a thing. Like you made clothes for the kids, you made clothes for the family, you made. My mom was always making, I don't know, whether it was a Christmas decoration or something to give away.
Yeah, same. My mom was making like little
Halloween costumes.
Little mini like seasonal quilts to like give people.
Yeah.
And like she tried to get me to make a quilt, and I like sewed. She taught me how to make a quilt when I was really young. And so she took me to like the fabric store when I was a kid.
Same.
And I got to like pick out my fabrics that I wanted to use. And I picked out like, when I was a kid, we went out to visit these friends out in Indiana, and we went out and visited some Amish towns.
They're quilting, yeah.
And some of the quilts that those people make is like incredible, like very vibrant, like
it's insane.
It's something that you would hang on a wall and be like, this is awesome. Someone handmade it.
It's artwork, and there's other things that go into that too. So for 4 of those my young years, I lived in Utah.
Yep.
And my parents both worked full time, and a lot of other parents did too. And there were Mormon families that would take care of their own kids, and Mormon families generally.
Sewing is like a normal thing for like everybody.
There would be 8 ladies in the living room around this frame, and they'd be sewing quilts, blankets for the new moms, the new families that were moving into town, or somebody that needed help or whatever. And so I was really exposed to this. So there's a cultural piece of this. There's a little bit of the religion piece behind it as well, but there's like a fellowship there. There's a camaraderie there. And so it wasn't just about the craft of sewing is what came along with it. It's like kind of sitting around the family dinner table, and like us kids, I still remember this, we'd be underneath the quilt, like they'd be over us, and we could hear these conversations. We'd be gossiping a little bit about, Mary over in this thing, and did you hear, and whatever. But then there would also be the very mature conversations about what was happening. And so I learned a lot about it. And I only bring this up because I don't think a lot of people, particularly where you grew up, were exposed to the things that you were exposed to, which is interesting. You're a SoCal kid, and you had this. So this is the sewing piece. We're talking about the airsoft piece, and you're bringing it together. So what may have seemed to your friends to be a little bit weird, maybe, I don't know. I know it was for me.
Yeah.
It was this is weird. Like,
sewing,
well, like, you made that.
What made me jump on the machine was when I was 8 years old, was that, like any kid, I was super into like ninjas, and so I got a ninja gi or whatever from a thrift store, and I wanted to sew some hidden pockets inside.
Of course you did, for your stuff, man. Ninja stars, nunchucks.
So I wanted like a martial arts gi, but with hidden pockets in it.
Totally get it.
And it's funny that I did that as a kid, because now, like, I make like concealed carry covert type
That's what I'm saying.
stuff. I've been doing it my whole life, pretty much. You know what I mean? So it's like, you obviously using different materials and fabrics and stuff, but
same premise.
It was like, I need something. I got the tools to make it, so I'm just going to do it myself. And that's what started it. That was like, hey, I went to my mom because she tried to get me to make a quilt, which I started. I think I still have it too, but it was like all these little squares, and I made it like black and red and like green. It was like
tactical.
It was really like a bold abstract thing. You know what I mean? But like, I think I was like 8 years old when she took me, and I cut up all the squares. And that's when obviously you learn to make a quilt. You're like sewing the squares inside out, and then you flip it, and then you like, it's a way of like constructing things backwards. That's kind of like where I learned the basics of how to do that. And my mom had a really good machine for the time. She didn't have like this crappy Singer. She had a $1,000 Bernina, which is like Swiss made, metal gears. And so when I got into high school and I started trying to sew through like webbing and Cordura and stuff, I was like breaking needles and like having to like hand crank that needle down through layers of fabric, because it's not really made to, it's not a walking foot. It's not an industrial machine. It's just a really good high quality like quilting machine,
So you had kind of talked about you were making some stuff for airsoft or whatever. You're making some gear and
I bought like this vest, and I wanted to make it look cooler. So I got some webbing, and I like sewed some like webbing lines on the back to make it look. It was like before Molly was out, so it was like they were like wide, like you could clip like Alice clips to it. And then I made like, we were making like these homemade BB grenades out of film caps with firecrackers. And the way you make those is like you sand down a dowel, and there's like this wooden piece you put in, you like stick the firecracker in, and then you make a little like a little pull ring out of like a piece of metal, and you glue a match box strike to it. And you stick matches in this thing. So it's like you put it all together. And we were building these as like teenagers.
Explosive devices.
And so it's like this thing that you pull and it ignites the firecracker and you can throw it and it starts smoking. And at the you fill the bottom of the film cap with BBs. So you have like grenades. And I would make like these bandoliers to hold all those little film cap grenades. And I have pictures of me posing with like guns, you know what I mean, with wearing this gear that I modified.
My brother and I, like I'm going to be probably almost 10 years older than you, but my brother and I have the same pictures. I mean, it's just a different era, man.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of people out there that can relate to this. So, I mean, that sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
But it kind of goes from this fantasy thing into the Marine Corps. So, I mean, you mentioned Marines. And you mentioned wanting to be a SEAL, and then you mentioned Marines. Talk about that real quick.
It was my first semester of college. I just started college. My plan was to graduate college, and then I didn't really want to be an officer, but my main focus was like, I need to be more mature, because I was doing all this research. I was like, the average age of someone who actually graduates BUDS successfully was 22. It's median age. I mean, there's obviously kids that are like smoking everyone when they're 18 and stuff like that.
Yeah, but they got
like,
a little life underneath them.
Yeah. So I was like, I just turned 18. My birthday's in May. So like I had just turned 18.
Before you graduated high school.
Right before I graduated, I turned 18, you know? So I went through my entire senior year, 17. And so like I just turned 18, started school in like August, and then September 11th happens. And I remember getting into my history class and the TV's on, and I didn't really know what was going on. People were watching TV. I'm looking at, why is the TV on? Why is everyone quiet and glued to the TV?
Like everybody can relate to that.
And I walk in, I'm carrying my helmet, in my backpack, and I sit down on my desk and I look up at the TV and I see one of the Twin Towers smoking, and they're like, because we're, 3 hours behind, it was like, 9 a.m. or around 9 a.m. when the first plane hit. And so we had just started school. It was my first class of the day. And I was like, before the second plane hit, they sent everyone home. They were like, classes canceled.
Right.
Or
it's
like
a security issue.
They canceled all classes. And I went, instead of going home, I went to my friend's house because we were like skateboarding all the time. So I was like, I went straight to my friend's house. I called him up. I'm like, hey, I got out of school. Like, want to go, like, let's go hang out and let's go skate or whatever. So I go back to his house and his parents are glued to the TV and he's glued to the TV.
Hasn't really hit you yet.
No, I didn't really know what was going on. I'm just like, something happened in New York. Okay, it's on the other side of the country and it doesn't really affect me. You know what I mean? And I go back, I'm like, what's going on, And then I watched the second plane hit live. I was like, oh my God, like this is not an accident, And so we were just like, I was just like, what do you, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, and then we watched the buildings come down and that.
There's this whole escalation of everything.
Like that had an effect on me. And I was like I was like prime age. Like, I was like, do I do college? So like when that happened, obviously there was a lot going on and stuff like that. But like after that, like I could not focus in school. I just had this calling. Drive. I was like, I go through class, I'd be like, listening and stuff like that, but my mind is somewhere else. I'm like, it's time to go. Like, it was clear to me, So I stopped at the recruiter's office on the way home, and the Navy was on the first floor, and I just decided to walk upstairs. I did have a friend that I was friends with in high school. Joined the Marine Corps like right after high school, like a couple of months before me. And he sent me pictures of after he graduated SOI, which is School of Infantry. And he was like wearing like a Prick 119, which is like the bigger like backpack radios. And he's like pretending to be on the phone and stuff. He sent me these like disposable, there was no smartphones yet, right? So it was like, he sends me, he writes me a letter. And he sends me like pictures of him like in camo, like wearing these radios.
Camera,
like a disposable Kodak or whatever. And I'm like, that's cool. Like, that's awesome. Like, he's doing that right now. You know what I mean? So that kind of like...
That could be you.
The Marine Corps was like, I went upstairs, and as soon as I stepped into the Marine Corps office, I just felt a completely different vibe. You know, they're wearing camis. They're all like, there was a gunnery sergeant in there that was a former Marine sniper. And my recruiter was actually an EOD guy. And so instantly I was like, all right, these guys,
another
like
level.
I felt more like, all right. And then I learned about, you know, Marine Corps infantry, because I wasn't doing a lot of research on the Marine Corps. I knew about Force Recon, you know, but I also knew that at the time, Force Recon was not part of SOCOM. And, you know, the Marine Corps did not have a special operations branch.
You're coming in, you're talking about a time where things are about to change. Dramatically. But
MARSOC didn't even
exist
until I got out. So I got out in 2006, which was the year that MARSOC was created. But, you know, they had Marine Recon, and then they had Force Recon, two different things. But I felt at home walking into the Marine Corps recruiting office and just talking with those guys. I was like, okay, so now I start weighing my options, because now it's real. Now it's like, where do I see myself a year, 2 years, 3 years from now? And I was like, okay, you've got the Navy, which I have a tremendous amount of respect for SEALs. But I was like, if I join the Navy and I don't pass buds,
you're painting a ship somewhere.
My options are limited, right? I'm going to be chipping paint off of a ship or something like that. They did have like parachute rigging, and they like that kind of, like, 'cause at the time,
that's just to soften the blow about the reality of what you just said about chipping paint.
At the time, you had to pick your A school, and you would go through your A school, and then like certain A schools would qualify you for buds. You had to have a certain A school, and so they would like tell you, like during the SEAL Challenge, it was like, yeah, you know, you could be like parachute rigger was one of them that qualified you. Other ones were like boats. I forgot how to pronounce it. It was like someone who steers like a little boat, boatswain's mate, or I forget. I don't know how to say it. But anyways, I was like, Marine infantry. Okay, yeah, I get to do some cool stuff as a baseline, you know. Then that makes me eligible to go do like recon and force recon. EOD, like the Marine Corps just had a lot more options.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say this right now. I think like in 4 months, you know, figuratively speaking, you're gonna be in the shit. You're gonna be you're gonna be an infantryman being sent somewhere in the world at that particular time. In about 4 months' time. Once you're in.
So I knew that that joining the Marine Corps, especially, so I enlisted in December of 2001. And I enlisted 03 open contract, which is basically it guarantees me Marine infantry, but they get to pick my Marine infantry MOS. And so like when you graduate boot camp and you go to School of Infantry, you basically get a wish list, and you're like, write down, here's the MOSs that we have. Write down what you want to be, like top, your number one pick, second pick, third pick. Like some guys are like, yeah, I want to be a machine gunner, or I want to be a mortarman. And I was just like, I just want to be an 0311. Like, I want to be a rifleman. And because at the time, and a lot of guys were like a lot of guys want to be 0311 because you go through more of the patrolling and like, you know, a little bit of like the reconnaissance aspect. You're a small unit, and you're the guy humping the pack with the rifle, and actually like, you know, like, your door kicker, you know what I mean?
Kicking doors is what I was going to say.
Yeah. So like, I was like, 0311, that's what I want to do, you know? So I enlisted in December 2001. There's so many people joining the military at that time. And I feel very lucky to have been able to experience the military during the time that I did, because the country was in a time where everyone was like, super patriotic, and like,
Team America.
We're gonna go get like payback time, you know. We're gonna go. Like, we're coming, you know. And so like I felt everyone felt that, and there was such a backlog that I didn't join. That I joined in December, but I didn't get to leave for boot camp until May. So it was like a 6-month time
delayed
frame.
Entry type thing.
Delayed entry program. So I go through MEPS and everything, and you know, it was like once or twice a week we'd go down to the recruiting office, and all the guys that were in the delayed entry program we would do like runs, and we would do like PT, and we're like, you know, maxing out pull-ups and stuff. I already been doing this for years, Like I was like running down to my school, and I'd like, because I was into skating, I was like super into like Iron Maiden and metal, and I would just put my headphones on and I'd go run, you know what I mean? And just like David Goggins status. Obviously not to his status, obviously like David Goggins is a
I get you,
freak,
but you're out there.
But like I wanted paint. Like I was like, I'm gonna go force myself to change.
Get
like
into the pain cave.
I gotta get ready. You know what I mean? And like you get to a point where it hurts, but then like it's all mental after that. You check out mentally and just go. You're like, your body's just moving, and mentally you don't feel it. You just become numb, right? And you just go. Because I was so focused about buds that like I was like, it's all mental. Like, yeah, it hurts, it sucks, but like I'm not gonna quit. Like quitting's not an option. It's like taking that word out of my vocabulary. So like I've already been doing it. So like when I got to boot camp, I had the highest PT score in the whole platoon.
You're one of those guys. Yeah. Tell me that's not a double-edged sword, though.
How so?
I don't know. Doesn't it count? I mean, it could be in that you could be the hated guy, right? Because you're setting the pace.
Well,
you also get given the extra responsibility when you might not necessarily want it.
So I wasn't the guide, the platoon guide right off the bat. There was another guy who was a lot older than me who was the guide. But I don't know what happened, but he like took a bunch of pills and was medically discharged in boot camp for like psych reasons.
Wow.
And then because I had the highest PT score,
that's what I mean.
They made me the guide.
That's what I mean.
And I'm just a super skinny double rat recruit, you know, who's 19. I just turned 19 years old. And, you know, I'm leading a platoon of like almost 60 guys.
You've arrived.
And I'm like, holy shit. Like,
it's real now.
Yeah. But like, I'd been preparing for, obviously the preparation had paid off because I was like, you know, your guide, because, you know, you can run the fastest and, you know, do the most pull-ups. And I was like, okay, like, that's kind of a dumb reason to make me the leader, but that's like, I'm saying, whatever. Yeah. But being, I know I'm the oldest of 6 kids. So wow. Like, I've always been
in
that leadership kind of mindset. You know, and as a high schooler, I was always like, you know, I never drank, I never, you know, did drugs or anything like that. I was always like,
straight.
You know, trying to be a good example to my younger siblings. And they used to, being a guide though was I've got some good stories. Like they'd make me hang on the pull-up bar while everyone's opening their mail. And they're like, he can drop when you guys are done opening your mail.
Wow.
So I'm like, you better open those. You better open that mail, like motherfuckers.
Double-edged sword to being the fit guy. Yeah. So you're flying through the physical piece of this, and the mindset piece was that you had instilled, you know, kind of downloaded a long time before that.
Yeah.
So, but you had a mission. Like there was a purpose for you, and I think that drives the thing too. Like just joining up because you think it's cool or whatever else is probably the reason some guys join, or they don't feel like they have a choice, or you know, they just have to do this. I have to follow maybe it's following the family footsteps, or maybe it's this is my way of getting out of trouble or whatever else. But
I have the only person who served in the military in my family was my grandma. Served in the Navy as a nurse during World War II. And then my great grandpa, who was an engineer, was attached to the civilian side of the Navy Seabees. So he was like not necessarily active duty in the Navy, but he was recruited and worked alongside the Seabees in the Navy.
Yes, I think I guess what I'm taking away from this is all internal stuff. This isn't like an external drive from somebody else or feeling pressure or whatever else. And then, again, as we're, you know, getting into the tracer and you know, with regard to your background and how things kind of got started, it's just this, you're self-motivated, right? And there's a lot, at 17 years old, that is a lot of self-discipline.
Yeah.
And, you know, coming into college, and it's a lot of self-awareness there to know, like, this is what I need to do. Right now where I am is not the right place. You know, I need to make these decisions. And then, you know, doing the work to be ready when it gets there. And probably, you sound like an overachiever. Right, is what it sounds like, you know, to some extent. I mean that I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, so I went to public elementary school, I was homeschooled throughout middle school. So 6th, 7th, and 8th, I was homeschooled. And my mom's not like a teacher or anything. She belonged to like this homeschool group, but I basically had to like get up, get into my textbooks and follow the curriculum,
right.
and then like do the work, you know, and a lot of it, I just had to like maintain my own schedule. So a little bit of the self-discipline, I think, started there. That's where it started, was like, you know, I have work to finish. And what's cool about homeschool, it's not for everyone. Like by the time I was in 8th grade, I was like done. Like I wanted to go back to public school, which I did. So I went to public high school. But like you work at your own pace, you know. So
a lot of lessons there.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of lessons.
So like
there.
the faster that I could get the work done, the faster I could be done. Yeah. And I'd go like skate my quarter pipe in the backyard while everyone else is in school.
Right.
And then what's funny is I think my mom, she wanted to homeschool me to kind of keep me away from like the bad kids. But I would just go up to the junior high and go skate with them anyways. Yeah. And we would go sneak on the roof and you know what I mean? And like
do what kids do.
Yeah, I was getting into the bad stuff anyways as a homeschooler.
Yeah. But you're learning different lessons in a different way. Yeah. So let's go back to the Marine Corps. So you get through that. You talked about wanting to be a sniper, right? And or scout sniper, or at least being
that was like the dream.
Intrigued by that, right?
Yeah.
So, but you go in as an infantryman.
Yep.
And is it an immediate deployment?
No. So in boot camp, I was screened by these guys. I didn't know who they were. They took us down into this room. They're like, "Hey, if you're an infantry MOS and you're over 6 foot, go downstairs." The drill instructors told us this. This is weird. Okay, we go downstairs, we sit in this room, they show us this video of dudes marching and stuff in DC. I'm like, this looks awful. Like, okay, we had to they made us fill out this paperwork. And they were like, I could tell they were screening people. I didn't know what it was at the time. And I was like, basically putting everything I ever did bad, you know, on my screening, because they're screening people. Like, have you ever been arrested?
Yes.
Have you ever been convicted of anything?
Right.
You know, have you ever tried drugs? Like, just like basic, like it was like MEPS almost all over again, but like writing it down.
Yeah.
And so I was like leaning heavy on like, hey, like this isn't for me. You know what I mean? Like it was like, I didn't know what the program was at the time, but it was like a 30-minute screening. And so then we go back up and didn't even think about it. Finished SOI, you know. That was in boot camp. The screening was in boot camp. So anyways, a month goes by or whatever, graduate boot camp. I finished SOI. During SOI, there was a bunch of us that got the opportunity to go take the recon induct. So Pendleton, at the time, it was like Area 52, and then you get in a truck, like 7-ton, and they drive you down to Camp Horno, and there's a pool, and there's a bunch of the recon Marines, the screeners, and they're all in like, you know, they got the black sweatshirts on and stuff like that. And I was like, obviously these guys are different, you know. But I'd known a little bit about Marine recon, but in my head, I thought like, it was like these guys are like wannabe SEALs. Like this is going to be cake. You know what I mean? Like, so I smoke the screening, the recon induct. It was like, you had to like, we're in the pool, you tread water for 30 minutes with like camis on. You got to like retrieve like a 5-pound brick or 10-pound brick or something like that from like 15 feet below, or retrieve a rifle, swim underwater, like the length of the pool, you know, holding your breath.
You're a fish. So
500 yards in full camis, timed, and then you get out and then you run a PT, and then you run a PFT, which is a physical fitness test, and you have to score at least a first class or above. You know, like I was running like 300 PFTs in boot camp. So I was like, you know, smoke it, no problem. We were talking to like the screeners, and I was talking to like the lieutenant and the first sergeant there, who was getting all of our information. They check our SRB, our service record books, to make sure we qualified for like our GT score and everything, and didn't have any like weird medical stuff. Yeah. So like, yep. All right. So you're gonna be coming to RIP after SOI, which is the Recon Indoctrination Platoon. Basically, they're prepping you for BRC, which is the
level.
basic reconnaissance course, or ARC, which is the amphibious reconnaissance course. It's basically a platoon where they hold guys before they send you to the schools, and then you go to an actual unit. And they were like, you guys are all coming to 1-1, 1st Recon Battalion. And so I was like, I remember getting back in that 7-ton, and we're riding back, and we're looking, and I joined the Marine Corps with a buddy from high school. We joined the buddy program. And so we did this all together. Like, we went through training together. That's another thing, like having a workout partner, having a buddy who pushes you, is extremely important, right? Because you're accountable to someone else. You're holding each other accountable. It's like iron sharpens iron, right? Like, you need someone to lean on. And we both passed it. And I remember, like, we were looking, and because he was going through like Fire Explorers, and I convinced him to join the Marine Corps with me. So because I had convinced him to join the Marine Corps with me, I got that like private first class. Like, I got a bump in rank and stuff like that.
You got your referral credits.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember sitting that 7-ton, headed back to Area 52, and we just got like the biggest smiles on our face. Like,
that just happened.
Like, yep, we're done. We did it. Like, we did it. We're good, right? So like, graduate SOI, and they're calling out everyone's names. By the way, before we graduated SOI, we actually had a lot of machine gunners pulled before they even graduated, because the units needed machine gunners, and they were deploying.
Yeah, I've heard this.
Which was like that was a wake-up call.
Oh, shit.
I was like, this is real. We're deploying. And what was interesting at the time is a lot of our SOI instructors and drill instructors had never experienced combat.
So this is a thing, because this is a whole new era. You're right at the beginning of that. You mentioned it before, and you don't know what you don't know. You're only training what you've been trained to train.
Yep.
Right. And they're going over there, and they're realizing there's a lot of learning. The learning curve is very, very sharp.
Yeah. There was absolutely zero experience in the leadership. And they're training these kids to go fight. To go to war.
Yeah.
Like, and so it was real. It was real. But as they're calling out our names and stuff, and they're like, Snyder, 8th and I was like, what the hell's 8th and I? There was a bunch of us. Everyone that passed the recon induct got sent to 8th and I, except one guy.
What's this? What is 8th and
I? The one guy that did get sent to 8th and I was like 5'4". So 8th and I is the Marine barracks in D.C. And it's the commercials that you see with all the guys in the dress blues marching, doing the funerals, all the dignitary arrivals.
The honor guard stuff.
It's the honor guard. It's the Marine Corps honor guard. And
okay, so the rug just gets ripped.
As a young kid, I was devastated. I thought that I had it made. I'd grown up in Southern California. I was going to be living my dream 50 miles away from home. I'm like, I'm going to be able to come home on the weekends. I'm going to be stationed at Pendleton. I got the ocean here. I can, keep surfing, and like, life's going to be a dream. I'm going to be able to do all the training I want to do, be close to home. I'm in basically my backyard where I grew up. You know what I mean? And they're like, nope, you're going to D.C. And I'd never been to the East Coast. And so, you're not going to where everybody else is going. Nope.
Which is why
we are not deploying. It's a 2-year duty station, and you're going to go learn how to drill.
Wow.
Like, and the Marines that serve at 8th and I are all infantry guys. They pull from the infantry MOSs. And so, I get there, and it's like, I'm devastated, and, I'm still a kid,
Is everybody else too that's there?
Oh, yeah. Like, we're all super just like, because we all joined because we wanted to go fight. And now we're seeing a lot of our friends who we just went through training with going over there, going to units and stuff, and going to go fight and stuff. And we got to go put blues on and go march.
And you seemingly did all the right things. You were fit. You passed the tests. Like, you stayed out of trouble.
Yep.
You did the things. You smoked their tests.
Yep.
You handled your business. You were
Didn't
patient.
Matter. Doesn't matter. Nope. The Marine Corps.
It's a tough lesson.
The Marine Corps is going to send you.
It's a tough lesson.
Where they need you. And at the time, I was devastated. It took me a long time to really appreciate where I was. And I didn't really appreciate being in DC until after I left. Because while I was in DC, because it's such a small unit, the unit gets selected for special schools. And so we had a lot of Marines that were going through Ranger School. It's funny, the Marine Corps isn't allowed to wear patches on their uniforms, but the Marines that would graduate Ranger School,
they would put
would sew their Ranger tab underneath their breast pocket, you know. And I was also one of the last classes to be issued the 3-color Woodlands, M81, right? Everyone knows what M81 is. So M81, I was issued M81 black boots. And when I got to 8th and I, we were starching our camis, polishing black boots. And then this weird change starts happening. Like the Marines coming in behind us are wearing like suede desert boots. You don't polish those, you brush them. You're not supposed to starch or iron the new camis because it messes with like the IR treatment stuff. So like you basically, you wash it without detergent and you dry it and you don't iron it. And there was like this weird separation between the guys. You know, obviously like you want to prove that you're senior. Seniority is a huge thing in the military. So like you want to prove, you hold on to that as long as you can because everyone below, like beneath you, it was issued. You could wear the uniform that you were issued. And so I was in this weird transition where we're phasing these uniforms. And so guys were mixing boots and uniforms, and like some guys were wearing the new uniforms. There was a period in the Marine Corps where you could wear black boots and the new uniform, or you could wear the old uniform and brown boots.
That's funny.
So, but like, because we were so small, there was guys going to jump school, there was guys going to Ranger School, and there was guys going to SEER School. And I got an opportunity to either go to jump school or go to SEER School. And so having wanted to be a SEAL, I was like, I want to go through SEER School. Because I saw G.I. Jane as a high schooler, and I was like,
who we all
SEER, you know? Like, I want to go do that. I want to go...
It's close to Buds,
I want to go get captured.
Close to Ranger School, right, yeah.
Survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. You know what I mean? Like, that, and from a practicality standpoint, too, I just found it more useful than jump school.
More practical,
you know?
yeah.
So I was like, I'll go to SEER School. And it was...
Why do I feel like there's another rug being pulled out coming up in the story?
No, that
happened. Okay.
There's no rug. I got to go to SEER School.
Okay.
It was at Bridgeport, California, up in the mountains at the Marine Corps Mountain Warfare Training Center. And I went through SEER School. It was the inaugural SEER class, which was where they combined the cold weather survival course with SEER. So like the first half was PracApp survival. And I went in end of January, beginning of February. So there was like a 7-foot snowpack.
Yeah, I mean, if you went over there right now, I was just over there. They actually had that part of the highway shut down. You couldn't get up to 395 there because there's so much snow up there. It was crazy. We were just over there over New Year's, and it was cold. Over against the mountain, it was 4 degrees. Like the day after New Year's, and that's very cold for California. I mean, you get up into the Truckee area, it hits there a couple times, but that's fucking cold.
Yeah. So there was 7-foot snowpack, which means we were digging down. It means you have to dig down 7 feet before you hit the dirt. And so we're sleeping in snow caves. We're learning how to ice fish. We're setting snares. You're like, we had to like, they gave us a rabbit and we had to like kill the rabbit, suck the eyeball out, give it to your buddy. He sucks the other eyeball out. You have to show the eyeball to the instructor and then you got to swallow it. And then you basically string up the rabbit, you skin it. And being a California kid, I'd never hunted or skinned an animal, you know? So like, that was my first time skinning an animal.
They were pets. Before
I'm like, I got to kill this thing. Like I grew up with animals and I'm like, oh man. And it was nasty too. It was like, you got to break its neck and twist its head. And then the rabbit like
survival
pisses and shits all over itself. And then you're putting this thing up to your mouth and you're sucking the eyeball out. It's covered in piss and shit. And you're just like eating this thing. And you're not hungry. You know what I mean? You're not starving at this point. You got to get past that gross factor, you know, because you're learning this is survival school, right? And then, so you string it up, you skin it, you do a bait bag, which is like all its entrails. And then you keep the good meat and you put it in a bag, and that just sits on the top of your pack.
Which, by the way, there's not a lot of meat on a rabbit.
No, it's a little bit. It's enough to last you a couple days if you ration it. And so, you know, the first half of the course was all PracApp, like learning these skills. You learn how to identify clouds and predict weather, and they make sure that you're good on your land nav and things like that.
So things are getting a little sexier for you.
Yeah. I was like, okay, this is fun. This is cool. This was like the first real I mean, this was the first school or course that I'd ever been through, actual course, you know. And then the second half is the actual evasion and like they call it the FX or final exercise or whatever. They do like a simulated helicopter crash. And it's not like you're running through the mountains by yourself. You're with a small fire team, which is like 4 guys. And you've got a safety instructor with you who's basically just keeping an eye on you. We're all wearing avalanche beacons. We're using snowshoes to move. We're basically hunkering down during the day and moving a lot at night. And the instructors are like trying to find you, and they're riding around on the main roads and stuff in snowmobiles. And they're using like loudspeakers, and they're speaking in like Russian to try and like find you. So there's like this little bit of like a role play or realistic aspect to it. Like hearing the sounds of like a guy saying, "We know you're out there. We're gonna find you."
Yeah.
And you're moving through the forest at night in the snow over rocks, and you're on a mountain, and it's a little sketchy, you know. At times, you're trying to like get down in elevation because when we did the simulated helicopter crash, you're up top, right? You're like as high as you can go. Land nav is super easy in the mountains because you can find your terrain features very easy on a map. And you're like, there's a mountain peak there. There's a mountain peak there. Shoot an azimuth, cross the azimuth. There's your point. Here's where we're at, you know? And so it's like land navving in the sticks in Virginia is not easy. There's like very little terrain. Everything looks the same. It's like trying to like land nav in a maze, you know? But like land navving in the mountains is very easy.
Different story. Yeah.
And so anyways, you're land navving, you're evading, they gave us 1 MRE and a rabbit to eat for 5 days. Like that's what I had for 5 days. 1 MRE and a rabbit. And so you're rationing your food, you're hungry, you're like melting snow in your canteens, and you're like drinking as you go. The very first night, I made the mistake of putting my wide mouth canteens with my LBV next to me when I was sleeping in my snow cave, and I wake up and my canteens are frozen solid.
Yeah, frozen.
I was like, after that, I had to put like all my gear that I wanted to keep room temperature in my bivy sack with me. So I would sleep with my canteens close to my body to make sure that my canteens wouldn't freeze. So yeah, SEER school was awesome. Definitely like the best and probably coolest training that I ever did.
Yeah.
We did a lot of other cool stuff when I was at Quantico. So because I was at Quantico, we were doing a lot of training with officers. We were, grunts don't get to like call for fire. You know what I mean? That's just like what special operations guys do and stuff like that, and officers. So we're learning how to like call for fire. And I'm actually talking to the pilots, and they're coming in.
Oh, that's interesting.
And they're dropping like 500-pound bombs on this like huge range on these vehicles out there, and I'm giving them coordinates and stuff. Like,
so it wasn't all bad.
No. Like I got to do a lot of cool stuff. They had the night vision course. It was like the second largest night vision course in the world is located in Quantico.
So you're getting exposure to quite a few things that most people, like if you'd gone infantry and gone over, like you would have never seen or done.
8th and I was in Alpha Company at 8th and I, and there's 8th and I is made up of Alpha Company and Bravo Company. Alpha Company is the color guard, the silent drill team, and 2 marching platoons. And then Bravo Company has the body barriers and 3 marching platoons.
Okay.
And their role is like DC riot control, right? And then Alpha Company is a deployable unit. And they actually deployed during the Gulf War.
Yeah, just speaking of that, so did you ever make it over to Iraq or Afghanistan?
No.
In all of this, you're getting all this training, you're getting shuffled around, and you never make it.
So an interesting, and we were a helo company in DC. So like we were doing a lot of helo ops at Quantico. So I got to do like spy rigging, and like we would like jump into the back of a CH-46 and like fly around Quantico and land in the trees like an LZ. And like, so we're working with helicopters and doing a lot of fun, cool stuff. But like I told you, I was still skateboarding a lot in DC, you know, as an active duty Marine. DC's got some really good skate spots, you know? And so Freedom Plaza is one of them. And so it was like right down the street from the barracks. I go skate Freedom Plaza and had like these like marble ledges, and there was a handrail nearby. And like, so I was skating and filming stuff too.
Okay.
And so I dislocate my shoulder on Thanksgiving Day while I was in DC. Bad. Like it was bad. I was able to get it back into the joint myself. And then I went to the hospital. They're like, yeah, you stretched some ligaments and stuff like that, but everything, you didn't, like, you're fine.
You didn't break anything.
No. So like, but then I started having more dislocations. Sure, yeah. It started coming out easier and easier. So I had like 50 dislocations or subflexions, which is when the top of the bone like comes out and then goes back in like that.
Subluxations are gnarly. And so you got joint laxity now.
Yep. So it was coming out all the time. Very, very, unstable. I couldn't do certain exercises, which was funny. I could still do push-ups. I could still do pull-ups, but I couldn't do, like, the one limitation that I had was like, I couldn't do shoulder presses.
Yeah, overhead pressing.
Yeah, I could do it, like, I could put the bar in front of my face, but not behind.
Yep.
So that was like really my only limitation.
Yeah, I was reaching back into the back seat or...
Yes. So you know about that. When the muscle's relaxed and it's putting pressure on the back of the shoulder, you got to be very careful when you do that because
right out.
It's happened. It happened to me a lot. I go to Bethesda, I get screened. They're like, yeah, you have a slap tear, or it's called a Bankart lesion. So it was like part of the tendon was severed. So it's like if you picture like a rubber band and you cut it halfway through, it's stretchier, right?
And it gets really irritated in there.
Yeah.
It just pisses everything off in the joint capsule.
Yeah. So I was pending surgery at Bethesda in Maryland, and they didn't care. They gave me orders anyways. It was the end of my 2 years, and I got orders back to Camp Pendleton. And so I got orders to 1-5, which is 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. And when I got to the fleet, that was when I was like, another culture shock. Whoa, this is what the real Marine Corps is like? It was like prison. Like,
how do you mean?
I'm talking like if you were like in 8th and I, if you were like a shitbag, they'd just send you back to the fleet,
That's you're going to prison, like you're out of here, like we're going to send you to the...
Well, you're going back to the regular Marine Corps infantry units. Like you're out of here, you're under a microscope when you're at 8th and I.
Okay.
And so like, if you weren't a good fit, you're gone. I had one of the guys in my platoon punched his team leader in the face. And so he had an attitude problem.
That seems like a fast track ticket.
Yeah. So they sent him back to the fleet. They're like, nope, you're gone. You got an attitude problem. You're out of here.
So when you get there, what does it look like, man? I mean, what are you doing? I mean, you've been doing cool stuff.
So I went from like living on in DC, the first year at the time, the Navy Yard, the Marine Corps Annex hadn't been built yet. They were building it. So they didn't have enough room for everyone in the barracks. So the first year you live in the barracks. Second year, as a Lance Corporal, single, not married, they give you BAH, which is basic allowance for housing, more money, and they send you out into town. And
sounds like a pretty good gig.
And you go live in town. And I was like, we were living in like a 3-bedroom townhome with a basement. So we had like 5 Marines living in this nice townhome, and we're all splitting the rent. So like my rent was like $300 a month, and I'm pocketing the rest.
Sounds like a pretty good deal. Yeah.
I got to buy my own car. I'm driving into work. It was like normal, right?
Versus
living in the barracks on a base, and you're like having to like...
Which is like Section 8 housing.
Yeah. Well, the barracks, when I got to Camp Pendleton, they put me in the building that they called the crack houses. And the crack houses, like the door lock didn't even work on my door. I had to like use like this metal card to like pick the lock to like get into my room. They didn't even know where the key was.
Good old Uncle Sam.
All the toilets were always clogged and disgusting. The showers wouldn't drain quickly. So when you're taking a shower, you're like up to your ankles in nasty water. And it's like,
sounds like prison.
It's a community shower. You know what I mean? So it's like back to that, from living on your own in a nice townhome, back to this, Yeah.
How quickly do you become disenfranchised?
And so at the time it was like my unit was getting ready to deploy. I'd missed the workup, and it was weird. I got to the fleet as a corporal. So I was an NCO, and I was in this weird void of like, I'm an NCO, so no one's really telling me what to do. But at the same time, I'm a low enough rank to where no one's like giving me a lot of responsibility. But I'm a high enough rank to where I'm not getting like fucked with, you know? So I was always like, and I was a new guy and they didn't know who I was. I'm the new guy. I'd missed the workup, you know? So like, they're just like going through, like getting ready. They're like getting stuff ready, like final preparation for deploying. And then when they screened me, they're like, oh, you're pending surgery.
Yeah, you got a bum shoulder.
You're like, you're not deploying. You're non-deployable.
Right.
You got to go get surgery down here at the main, you know, the hospital down at Pendleton at Mainside. So I was like,
yeah. So Bethesda's just like, we'll just let them deal with it.
Yeah, Send him to Pendleton. He can get surgery.
They'll figure it out.
At the other hospital.
So did this happen?
Yeah. So I was deemed non-deployable. I was put into the DAD platoon, which is the dependence assistance during deployment. This is the DAD platoon. And I was all the guys who were like pending medical, are like EASing or getting out, like basically support for the platoon, for support for the battalion while they're overseas, you know? And this was early 2005 when Fallujah was bad.
Yeah, I mean,
it was like the Battle of Ramadi.
It's the heat.
It was like the peak
the
of combat.
Bloodiest time.
The peak of combat in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
And our battalion had like 16 KIAs.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the trucks of the platoon that I was supposed to be part of was hit. The guys that I was going to be going over there with were hit by an IED, and like 4 of them were instantly killed.
Mm.
One of them was a twin brother, and his brother was in the other platoon.
Jesus. Yeah.
And we were doing all the funerals when these Marines were getting sent home. We'd go do these funerals, you know, locally. I came out to Vegas to do a funeral for a Marine who was, you know, from Vegas.
You know, man, I'm just listening to you here, and like, you know, you hear a lot of people, you know, telling their story, and you know, guys your age that, you know, were in combat and ultimately they get there.
Yeah,
it's a very interesting story and a very real story. I'm sure you're not the only one that has a similar story, you know, of having dreams of serving their country and doing it in a very specific way and signing up and doing all the right things, and then by whatever the moon, sun, and stars, or however the universe kind of aligns, things just don't work out. And, you know, people out there could be listening, yeah, dude, you should have stayed away from that fucking skateboard and it would have been just fine. You know, whatever, but come on. It could have been anything else. It was just where you were at that particular time. You know, the other part of that is you could have been on that truck. True. You know, you could have been
that hit me when, because some of these, I was on duty the night before, which duty in the military is like, you're basically on post for 24 hours with another guy, and you're just basically like, it's kind of like security. Like you're the Marine who is there
Fire
at night
watch or whatever.
Yeah. So like I'm on duty with this guy the night before they deploy, they leave, and the next time I see him is in an open casket at his funeral.
That's
you know,
that's heavy, like, man.
And so like that was you know, I started really like, I was like, I'm lucky. I'm very lucky. Mm-hmm. I joined the Marine Corps during a time of war. I'm an 0311, a rifleman, and I am active duty during OAF 1, 2, and 3. And I never deploy.
That happens. Yeah.
So I have 0 combat experience. I got to do a lot of cool training, and I have 0 combat experience. I didn't separate on a medical. I had to, after I got surgery, I had to do physical therapy, and then I had to complete a PFT.
Go through all the medical stuff.
And then they're like, yeah, you passed the PFT, you're good. So I didn't get a med separation. Right. I you know, was discharged honorably. Under normal circumstances. I was like, by the time I got out, I was doing 17 pull-ups again, you know, like, I was starting to surf again. You know, that was really good physical therapy for my shoulder, you know, and Trestles is right there. Right. It's like one of the best surf spots.
Like, what's the transition like out? I mean, you know, so that didn't go as planned.
Yeah.
I mean, that did not go as planned.
No, and I was struggling a lot. I did get an opportunity to potentially take the sniper in doc. I had went to one of at the time it was the chief scout sniper, I told him, yeah, I want to take the NDoc. I think I had like 6 months left. And it was like, kind of like, I want to see if I can get in and get some good training in before I decide to like move on from the military. I had met my wife during that time. And so I was in this, I was going home every night and hanging out with her, driving 50 miles north back home. It's funny, my wife and I, we met when I came back from DC, but we went to the same high school. She was a year behind me. So I knew who she was. She's the only one in the high school with the name that she has. She has a unique name.
So basically you're driving like back home.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get away from the base as much as I can. And I remember I would go home, we would hang out, we would go out to dinner, we would see movies and just hang out. And I would sleep at my parents' house, and then I would drive back to Pendleton at like 4 a.m. Almost every day.
Yeah.
So I'm driving 100 miles round trip every day just to get away from Pendleton and hang out with my girlfriend. And I remember I got the chance to maybe take the sniper NDoc. They're like, the lieutenant said, you may not take the NDoc unless you extend.
What was the commitment going to be?
18 months.
Yeah.
Because the next deployment was going to be Westpac. So it was going to go Western Pacific. So they go to Okinawa. They do like jungle warfare training.
Philippines.
They go to the Philippines. Yeah. They go down. I think they hit Australia, like all the Pacific Islands and stuff like that. So it was like, you're on a ship.
Yeah, you're gone. Yeah.
I was like, but it's by the time like that was like it's better than going back to Iraq. That's where everyone was going at the time. It was before like there was units headed to Afghanistan, but like the fight wasn't in Afghanistan at the time. It was still in Iraq.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember like being a little pumped to do that. My shoulder was getting better. My PT score was good, and I felt like I could handle it physically at that time. So, but my girlfriend was like, there's no guarantees that if you extend and you leave for 18 months, I'm going to stick around,
Yeah. I mean,
and I couldn't blame her for that. We'd only been dating for like 6 months.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm like,
all
right.
Yeah, you got life decisions to make.
I was like, all right. So I was like, I really evaluated, my decision, and I realized that dream was no longer my dream. I kind of had, after going through like, experiencing, being sent to wherever like the cards that I was dealt, I feel extremely lucky, but at the time I felt like I was unlucky.
Oh, I'm sure, man. Yeah.
So I was like, I'm ready to get out of the Marine Corps. Like I'm done. I'm ready. 4 years. I'm good. So my wife and I, I started dating. We dated for 3 years before we got married. I didn't get married while I was in the military, but yeah, I got out. And
what was it? I mean, you got to put food on the table. So what'd you transition into?
So when I was going through, they called it TAPS, the Transitional Assistance Program. It was like you learn how to write resumes, and there's some like job fairs, and like they come and they'll like pitch you. There was a company called Horseman Investigations they had a booth at this recruiting fair for on base at Camp Pendleton. And
this is security?
No, it's surveillance.
Okay.
So it's surveillance investigations and for workers' comp fraud specifically.
Okay.
That's all they focused on was workers' comp. And they showed me a video of a guy running up a mountain and setting up a camo net and filming a guy with a tripod working on a dam when he wasn't supposed to be working. Like he had a side job, right? And he tails this guy.
Okay.
This is in Southern California. So like he tails this guy from like Huntington Beach to Big Bear. And he runs up the side of this mountain. He sets up this camo net. And he's filming this guy doing something he's not supposed to. And so I started doing a little bit of research on this company. And I was like, this is badass. This is almost like being a sniper.
It's cloak and dagger shit.
Like I get to like follow people and film people without them knowing. And when I went through, I got an interview, and I brought like photos of me of like, while I was in the Marine Corps, and like I had some like pictures of ghillie suits that I had done, and and I told them, I was like, I can get into places that other investigators can't. And I showed them pictures of me up in the mountains and stuff like that. I was like, I will hike up and I'll put a ghillie suit on and I'll be on a radio with another investigator.
What's the reality of this though, man?
So I actually did a lot of rural cases.
Okay.
So they would send me to go work cases in like Northern California, Idaho. I worked cases up in Washington State and Hawaii. So I was traveling all over the West Coast, working some of these cases, and some of them were pretty sketchy. Most of my cases were, in Southern California, out of my vehicle. So I was working out of a small SUV with tinted windows, and parking somewhere and sitting in my car all day.
Some James Bond shit.
Yeah, like tailing people and like following them into Walmart and like filming them. And this is all before smartphones still.
Right.
Like we had to use
technology was much different. Yeah.
We had to use like these boxy cameras. There's no GPS. Like the first I remember when I got my Garmin for my car. I thought that was some like high-tech shit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like
I started with like Thomas guides sitting on my seat. And I was like flipping through Thomas guides trying to find this address.
The kids listening don't even know what that is.
I know. I had like Thomas guides for every county, in my seat.
So that's how you're paying the bills, and you're getting into some more cool experiences. When does Tracer come into this?
Tracer didn't even Tracer didn't even start until 2020. I have a security background, so I did 3 years of surveillance as an investigator, and then I decided to go transition into the executive protection world.
Okay,
and that's when I had to because I screened for a company that required me to take a polygraph. It required me to take a physical fitness test, and I was like, this is right up my alley. When I went to go apply and do my interview, the address that they gave me was a false business front. And there was all these like secret doors that I had to walk through. So the headquarters of this building. And it was for a company called Gavin DeBecker and Associates.
Yeah, I know about Gavin DeBecker.
And I worked for GDBA for 13 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I started on the executive protection side. And I started as at the time they were calling them security staff agents.
Yeah, we had some GDB guys on the show.
Yeah.
So I know about that.
Yep. But I started in the EP side, and then I was a detail leader. So I ran several details. And then I transitioned into the technical side. So GDBA started its own technology division.
Mm-hmm. They're massive.
And because I had managed a client that was it was like a $50 million house, or there was like a $100 million project, this house that they were building, and like they were installing like $1 million like security system. And so I kind of like fell into that on accident. And so because I managed that as kind of like a project manager, they asked me, do you want to be the operations director for this technology division we're starting?
Wow. That's
and I was like, hell yeah,
how
I
much
do.
does that pay? Yeah, and yes, yeah.
So for a while, I was doing both. I was the operations director, writing policy and procedures for this new division. It was like a startup.
That's awesome experience. Yeah, man. Like just get thrown right into it.
Yeah. And I had to like create this division within a company with kind of an unlimited budget. And we were like buying brand new trucks. All of our technicians went through polygraphs with brand new uniforms, brand new tools. Like we're buying everything because we wanted to be like,
you got the
top tier.
You got the golden ticket, man.
Yeah, like top tier technicians that go into these multi-million-dollar homes and install these. Our security systems range anywhere between we did some systems that were like $300,000 for the security system. That includes like cameras and access control and lighting and alarm systems, safe room, everything you can think of.
Mm-hmm.
Covering security. We would do assessments, and the assessments is basically like a risk assessment. And we would talk about deterrent vegetation and the importance and how effective dogs are. And
that sounds cool.
It was fun. It was great, and it stabilized.
Every project's a different project.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're getting access and probably talking with and working with some high level executives, people on the end user side, but also people on the administrative and senior leadership side.
Yeah, and from a personal standpoint, by that time, my wife and I had been married, I think like 5 years, or maybe longer than that, 8 years. We waited 7 years before we had kids. That was like 7 years. So 7 years, and we did some traveling. You know, we did like a 27-day backpack trip in Europe.
Awesome.
And we were like sleeping in hostels, and it was just me and my wife just traveling through Europe, you know, taking trains and stuff. And that was a super cool experience. We did that before we had kids. We traveled a lot. We went to, you know, Tahiti, went to Hawaii a couple times, went down to Belize, you know, like with friends and stuff like that. So we got all that travel stuff out of our system. And when I went to be the operations director for this technology division, my wife was pregnant. So it was like perfect timing.
Yep, great.
My schedule stabilizing. Now I have a predictable schedule. I'm working in an office.
Things are working out for you.
Yeah. Like it was like perfect timing, you know, and things were great. And we were, you know, very successful running that division. I got to my second year, I was like running it. And then like, I think it was like my third year, they brought in an outside hire, like a VP who like had a construction background. He also had a special operations background. He did like PsyOps for the Army and stuff like that. He was a paratrooper or something. But he was a great mentor. So he brought a lot of the procedures and stuff to like formal, like what the industry, like construction industry, right? He had a lot of like how to write contracts and stuff like that. And so that's really how I kind of was like groomed to like, here's how you start a business and here's how you scale it. Because when they brought me in to be the operations director, we had 4 employees in it. And then by the time we decided to shut down the division, but by the time we shut down the division, we had 26 people in it.
Yeah, I mean, GDB it turned into a huge company. There's a lot of divisions, and that industry in and of itself is massive. And so I know a little bit about that company, just in terms of how it's structured and restructured now, and brought on other things and got rid of some things. And
it was acquired when I was in. We were doing that. It was acquired by a $66 billion investment firm.
Right.
They pumped in a ton of capital.
That changes things.
Yeah,
that changes things.
So like the company was undergoing a lot of changes at the time. And prior to that, I got all that EP stuff out of my system.
Yeah,
I got to travel with clients overseas, and I got to like, you know, do all the protective work and stuff like that, and drive them around and be chased by paparazzi and you know, do all that stuff. Like I got that out of my system, and I wanted something more stable and predictable. And then when they shut down that division, I got into the consulting division, and that's when a lot of my design stuff started to happen. So I learned. What
was the first design
for Tracer?
Yeah.
So when I was doing security assessments, we would go to these offices and houses and stuff, and we would like bypass and pick locks. And I wanted a multicam black lockpick case. Couldn't find one. So the cases that come with the kits are like, you know, these cheap Chinese cases that just, you know, they're garbage.
Right.
And so I bought some material, and my mother-in-law had a sewing machine that she wasn't using. I saw it sitting there in a box. I was like,
can I use that?
Can I borrow that? So she let me borrow it, and I take it home, and I start I like go to Joann's and I like buy the needles for it. I buy the thread, and I ordered some like fabrics and Velcro and webbing and stuff from this company, you know, in Colorado. And I just start tinkering. I start making things, you know. Started with a little lockpick case that was like this big that could fit in your pocket. And that was the first thing I made. That was the first thing. Yeah.
So when you made this, was it, and you said it was like, this was just for you, but did you realize you were maybe like onto something, or like, I really love doing this? Maybe like, what's the next project now?
So
because if you're a tinkerer, and I know my old man's one of those. Like, he'll get out in the wood shop and he'll start making stuff. And the next thing you know, I haven't seen him for 2 weeks, and he's like,
I was starting to make all kinds of little accessories for myself, like little things. And I was deep into my security consulting role. I was, you know, I felt good about where I was, and I was doing something interesting that I enjoyed doing. I really enjoyed being a security consultant. You know, every time you go to a house, it's different.
Right.
You're problem solving.
You're being challenged. Yeah.
You're having to think outside the box, and you're having to find solutions for different applications, and there's no room for error. You're not just throwing like mud to a wall and see if it sticks. You know what I mean? Like, this billionaire is hiring you to find a solution for a potential life-threatening problem that he has. And we also have to take aesthetics into consideration.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, there is no one size fits all, because every situation is different. And every
project's custom.
Yeah, and that's what I was just going to say, which allows a little creativity. And you have the autonomy to kind of maybe bring this to the table. Yeah. Obviously, you're going to have frameworks and structures and products or whatever that you may be limited or whatever by, but there's still got to be some level of like, I can do this, we could do this way, or we could do this way, or we can maybe find something in between, what's going to work best.
Obviously, you have resources. And that was a tenet, I guess I would say, of the company, was utilize your resources. Make sure you're using your resources. Don't ever try to do something yourself. Make sure that you're asking for help when you need it. You know, because if you don't ask for help, then and you try to do something and it's on and it fails, like, it's on you.
Right.
And I had moments where, you know, I wanted the glory of, you know, figuring something out myself, and so I didn't ask for help, and
it backfires.
It backfires. It didn't work out, and now I have to explain to the owner of the company, Gavin, who's a celebrity in himself. I mean, he's been on Joe Rogan. Right. He's written, you know, best-selling books. The Gift of Fear is a really good book if you haven't read it. But I have to explain to him why I made a certain decision and why I didn't have support.
Yeah, it teaches you some skills, right? Yeah. About how to problem solve, but how to do that on the, you know, without messing up, and also looking for the solution within the solution, or the problem within the problem.
And working as a team, too.
Not getting hit in the side of the head.
Yeah, like I wasn't leading the consulting division. I had two bosses essentially who had, you know, 20 years of experience in doing this, and they were, you know, experts in their field, and I was the young guy trying to prove himself.
Yeah, but that's what a fortunate place for you to be. I mean, again, things are looking up for you, man.
Yeah.
So you make the lock picking kit. When does this evolve? Right. So you're making like these little personal items.
Sure.
But in being in the security world, EP and whatnot, the stuff's a little bit more covert.
Before I had done that, I'd like modified like belt kits and stuff, because I was wearing gear. I was wearing like, you know, radio. Range gear. Yeah, okay. I was wearing a belt kit. It was like I made this modified covert belt kit that could carry a radio, my handcuffs, a Leatherman, my medical, like my small IFAK, and Surefire, you know, like just like basic stuff you'd wear on coverage.
All underneath, like a sport coat.
You would wear like a button down shirt untucked, and it's all underneath your gear. And we're wearing body armor, you know,
right?
Mic'd up, got the little earpiece, you know, so we're on comms and stuff. But I was my wife was pregnant at the time, and COVID happens. My daughter was born I was already like dabbling, and like I like put some stuff out there like on Instagram, and I was like, hey, I'm making these things out of multicam black, and got a lot of interest. I was like, wow, like people want this stuff. Other people want this. So I started like, if you want this, hit me up and you can Venmo me and I'll ship it to you.
Okay.
You know?
So you're doing one-off projects?
Yeah. People would DM me, hey, you selling those things? I'll buy one, you know? So I mean,
COVID was huge for that. Like a lot of small companies were like making these, people had time, they had money, they had lots of time to scroll. Lots of time to look, and people are all talking about it, and they have lots of time to film videos and take pictures and things like that. So, yeah, good timing.
What really was the game changer for me was at the time I lived in Orange County, but I worked in like Glendale, so I was driving like 3 hours a day. It's like an hour and a half there, hour and a half back, or sometimes like 45 minutes there, 2 to 3 hours to get home. You know, so I'm sitting in my car. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I've always been really big on like self-improvement. So like a game changer for me was like, I listened to like Think and Grow Rich How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Like
like these are like
guys are the same.
classic books. You know what I mean? That are like self-improvement books. Your world kind of opens up. You have like this paradigm shift where all of a sudden everything changes, and you're like, you realize that you're not meeting your full potential. Like, what else can I do? What else am I capable of? I've always been about that, but like, it wasn't until I got that time back. Now all of a sudden I have 3 hours more extra a day
to put into this,
to do whatever. Like I could have, you know,
put it into yourself, put it into your projects, put it into your passions.
I don't have to. We were doing everything remote, you know, unless I had to go do an assessment. Then I'm driving in and doing the assessment, but I'm writing the report and answering emails and doing everything from home. And we're having like team Zoom calls and stuff like that, you know, to make sure we're on top of all of our projects. But everyone's working remote. My daughter was born, my youngest. I've got an 8-year-old. My other daughter turns 6 next month, and then my other daughter turns 3 in March. But my youngest daughter was born on March 12th, and then COVID kicks off.
2020, yeah, so like literally a week later.
The day or two after. We were still in the hospital when they started locking stuff down. And we just got discharged. But so I go from paternity leave to straight into working from home.
Lockdown,
Yeah. I was like, you're not going back to work. I was like, this is kind of weird, but you know, okay. But I was just like, I just got after it. You know, I started seeing the potential about like stuff I could do. I was using my time, you know, effectively to create additional income, you know, and then once it started growing, you know, baby steps, one thing at a time. All right, like let's do this right. I started as a sole proprietor, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and then eventually like you get your big break. So like it wasn't until I started making the shoe tongues that I started getting these big orders. And I took the first chunk of change that I got from that, and I trademarked my brand, my name. I trademarked my logo, and I got a patent.
Yeah, investing back into the company.
Yeah. So I'm laying the foundation for the company, and I'm protecting it because I wanted to do everything right. You know, I saw the potential in what this could be, but still not really thinking big. I'm making small things. You know, I'm not making chest rigs or anything like that yet. It was Ed Calderon who challenged me to make a chest rig.
Is that right? That was the inspiration for that.
Yep. He was like, can you pull off he's like, you think you could pull off a chest rig? It's like,
Ed's asking you better try. Yeah.
All right. So I made one, and I cringe at it, you know, now looking back, but it's like you have to step outside of your comfort zone constantly if you want to keep growing, you know, like just keep pushing. More complicated projects, bigger, you know, more. And it's just little by little, it's grown.
It's exciting to watch. And again, I opened this up with saying like, I was shocked that it was just you behind all this, because as it's grown, it's still stayed you. I mean, you mentioned you've got this, you know, this one person, this family member that's working for you now, but the evolution, like, I mean, you just said the chest rig, right? And the chest rig, I think everybody's seen it out there, you know?
We have a few of them now, but
they've seen this evolution, and now like you kind of, I know it when I see it, and I think a lot of other people do too. And I think so I have questions about it. So, you know, as you're developing these products and you're thinking like, I can do, you know, we can do more, my skill set's getting better. I maybe have new tools. I've figured this out about this thing, this material, this is what works, what doesn't. But when you're in that situation, you also have this flexibility in this space to be really creative and not be limited, which can be a problem for some people, right? They start getting off on some weird tangent or whatever, but this constant innovation comes up, and you're not limited by somebody else making a decision, you know, a financial decision, or we're just not going to do that right now, or whatever else, which then allows you to put together custom projects for people to fit their very, very specific needs. So if you compare and contrast that against, like, you know, again, I'm walking around SHOT Show here, and there's gear companies everywhere. I mean, that's where I hear what makes it different. You know, what I see is your ability to provide something in a very short period of time, and then, you know, get a product out there, even a test product out there, have people test it, get back to you with feedback, and then return the improved product in a very short turnaround time. I don't know if that's normal in the gear business or isn't.
I don't think it is, based on the conversations that I've had with other people who I've completed projects with. Their you know, negative experiences working with other people, with other companies. You know, they some of these projects, you know, drag on for a year or more, and then nothing ever happens. I got an opportunity to work with, you know, Jerry and Triple Feed. They were trying to push some products out, and it was in its developing stages for over a year. Nothing ever happened, and then you know, I meet Jerry through the special projects community, which is like this community of guys that it started during. There's a whole story behind that. I don't even want to get into it, but special projects community is a group of people who we come from all different backgrounds, and we all have you know, different businesses and stuff like that. A lot of us are entrepreneurs. We own our own businesses, but we are in different industries. Some of the guys are knife makers. Some of the guys, like Ed, is in it. You know, he's got some crazy experiences with like counter custody, and I'm the only tactical, like soft goods guy, you know, in the group. So I'm making nylon, you know, sewing tactical nylon. But I met Jerry through that, and I found out that he lived like 20 minutes from me. And so he's like, "Hey, I heard you like sew stuff." And he went to, you know, he you know, went to my page, and I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Where do you live?" And I was like, "Oh my God, you're like 20 minutes away. Like, let's get together. Like, let's see if you can do this." So like, and working with Jerry, we built the DSM.
The DSM, yeah. I have one sitting on front of my chest rig.
The directional Swift mag, and like, I'd say within a couple days, like within hours, we had like 3 designs. You know, because we're like whiteboarding it.
That's how fast, yeah.
Yeah. We're just like, you know, he's, you know, we were spending like hours and hours in my garage, just like drawing on the whiteboard, sewing stuff up. Jerry's testing it. He's like, "Yeah, that's good. Oh, I'll tighten it up a little bit right here. Okay, tweak that. You know, like, let's get it." You know, so we're teaming and building it like right there, like right in my garage. And then within like a couple of weeks, we had like 3 finished products for 3 different chest rigs. You know, and there's like scratching their heads, like, how, like, how does something that took a year take like just a couple days now? You know what I mean? And so it's like, I can explain a few things, but like the analogy that I like to use is like, okay, a big company, right? I'm not going to name any examples, but like a big company is like an aircraft carrier, right? You have a captain, you got to change course. It's going to take a little while to start turning that ship to go different. It's going to take a lot of decisions. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a huge operation. I'm a little Zodiac in the ocean, zipping around by myself.
You want to turn around and go the other way? Turn around and go the other way?
You want to go that way? Let's go. We're moving. You know what I mean? So it's like, because now my wife is basically my partner. She is the other half of Tracer Tactical. People don't know that. You know, I talk to my wife every day, obviously, for hours. She gets sick of me talking about the different ideas, or like I'm running out to my garage. I have an idea, and I run out to the shop. So I've got like 2 separate garages. I've got like my garage, which has like, you know, inventory, and my office and shipping and everything. And then I've got my dedicated build area where it's like all my material, all my machines and everything. And so I can sustain and do small production in that, in there. So it's evolved, obviously, continuing to evolve and expand. And like, we're outgrowing it. Like, I would say probably very, very soon we're going to be in a commercial space.
Yep.
Like, it's just,
that's exciting.
Yeah. Like, it's just,
it's probably also nerve-wracking.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to stay as lean as I can, because part of that, you know, obviously I want to maintain the capability of moving fast, you know? And so my wife takes care of our kids. She's a stay-at-home mom. It's because of her that allows me
to do this stuff,
to focus on this. Could not run Tracer Tactical without her support.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
You know, there has to be a number one fan in there somewhere, or somebody to help you when you don't have the bandwidth, or gives you the freedom and flexibility.
Yeah, and there's friction because we're trying to maintain that balance of being present when you're in the house with the kids and present on the weekend. And when you're with the kids, you're in their world. You know what I mean? And when they're in school, it's been getting way better now because I was able to quit my job and take Tracer full time.
So now, you're all in on it.
Yeah.
Now.
So now
it's not a side gig.
Nope. Tracer is a full time. It is our livelihood. And now I'm starting to look at scaling, and it's a different game.
There was a time there where it's really tough to make those decisions, right? Going all in is a big deal, but I think you start to recognize what you can do when you do go all in.
Yeah.
You mentioned you found that time in COVID where it was like, man, I got this extra time. Then you can kind of see what you're capable of.
Yeah. I mean, for 2.5 years, I was, grinding.
Juggling. Yeah.
Day job, put the kids to bed, go out to the shop at 9 o'clock, work till 2 a.m. And there was a couple times where I would, work through the night and just pull an all-nighter. Because I was when you feel like you're onto something, you're working on adrenaline,
I know that feeling.
Yeah. You're just into what you're doing, and you just don't want to stop. You're just not tired. You know what I mean? You just don't want to stop doing what you're doing.
Yeah, it's an obsession.
Yeah. I am, you can ask my wife, I am obsessed with this.
Just never leaves your brain.
That's all I think about.
Yeah. So, and other entrepreneurs out there can, and I've had people that sat in that chair that are the same way. I mean, it's got to be in there, or to be ultimately successful. I really think that has to be it. You will find balance in that and find imbalance in that at some times in your life. But we were talking about, making time for the kids and making sure at some point you do switch off. And sometimes you need that partner or that person in your life. Just go, hey, we're going out to dinner on Friday.
Yeah.
And that phone isn't coming out, and we're not talking about, black multicam. We're not talking about, chest rigs, any of that shit. It's just not coming up, right?
Yeah. So I mean, it is 100% an obsession. I'm definitely an introvert, but get me talking about what I love doing, and I will talk your ear off. You know what I mean? Yeah. I enjoy going out to my shop at night and working. Still enjoy it. But now that I'm doing this full time, I was burning the candle at both ends for a long time. And your body can only handle so much, sleep deprivation is not...
It's a thing.
It's not good.
It's a real thing, yeah.
So my wife always makes fun of me. She's like, look at you before you started your business, and look at you now. It's like that picture of the guy who before, he's got that 1,000-yard stare, and he's scruffy, and he just looks like a crazy guy. You know what I mean? It's like, I kind of look like that now.
Chris McCandless back in there. The call of the wild.
Starting to get more gray. I got more gray.
Comes with the territory, man. But at the same time, there is something to be shown for the work that's being put in. And, when we sat down, just prior to sitting down, this is really your first official, real SHOT Show, right? You were,
I was here last year with Night Vision Inc. And we released a couple products, but I think I have 3 times the following that I do now than I did last year.
Right. How many more products do you have than you had at the same time last year?
Oh my God, I can't even tell you.
That's an answer that I expect you to tell me.
Yeah.
Because I cannot keep up.
I don't know
with the new stuff that continues.
I don't keep track.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Here's what. So because I am small, and because the business has grown so much, I have had no choice but to use OEM. I can't do this by myself.
Right.
Can't keep up with
eventually every artist or every craftsman or whatever has to make decisions.
Yeah. And there's a lot of companies that use this model. Obviously, if you want to compare companies, Haley Strategic, they use OEM. They don't have in-house sewers. Spiritus, They have in-house sewers, but I know that they also use OEMers. Like there's a balance there. You need to have contingency plans.
Yep.
You know, if something happens, you need to have your
deliver.
Product. Yeah. So like if something happened to me,
right.
Now that this is supporting my family, I need to have backup. And going the OEM route allows me some flexibility to take that. You know, if something were to happen or something were to not work out, I can take that to another sew shop, and they can do that for me. So.
I think this is important that you bring this up because I think the consumer needs to understand this. You know, it's like if you want good products, you want them for a long time, and you want them from the same company, and you want them and expect them to be there for you, then you have to accept a certain amount of this. This is the way the world works. This is how manufacturing works. And ideally you'd have you have your own facility and you'd have 50 sewers, cutters and sewers in there. And you guys be putting together all these products, shipping, receiving, marketing, all this stuff. But that isn't how the great companies get started, right?
No. And I think if I were to try and, hire a bunch of sewers and buy a bunch of machines and be running a sew shop, I think that would decrease my effectiveness as someone who can continue to innovate and bring new products to market.
Grow at scale too, yeah.
I don't want to be dealing with like drama between employees and managing like a bunch of employees. Like I want to continue to design and crank out products as fast as I can. And so once I have a solid product, it goes to production and I move on to the next thing. And I don't keep track. We have the product, by the way, we do have because I have a small shop, I can build, these are my designs. I can build every single one of my products myself.
Right.
And a lot of times I do.
And you don't have to wait in line.
No.
You're not waiting in line.
No. Yeah. So I'm still on the machine sewing. And I sew a lot of stuff. But as the company grows, I have to be very smart with my time. And I got to let go of that control. And I can't be working in the business. I have to be working on the business. I have to be growing it and improving it, not just burning my time sewing a product that costs $15.
Right. These are the very real decisions that business owners have to make, and it's the hardest ones. When do I step away from doing the business all the time and start driving the business, right, or administrating the business?
And I mean this, and this may be a shock to a lot of people, because there's a lot of products that I do make, and I have the ability to make a lot of my products. But and my girl Kaisa too. She's my wife's cousin. She's my employee, and I've been training her on how to make everything as well. And she has the ability to do it, and we work together, and we can basically sew up any one of our products. And I have a lot of material and everything to do that, and I have all the machines in my shop to do that. But when you need to make 100 of something.
Yep, it's a different story.
And now we're getting a lot of SOCOM units who want our stuff.
Exciting.
And that's been a game changer for us. Is that now that our designs are starting to, get some recognition from some of the guys who actually use the stuff. It's had me reevaluate like the way I design, the way I manufacture and do production. Because when I design something, not only do I want to try to design it to be the best it can, but I also have to factor in, is this cost efficient for production too? There's a balance.
Sure.
You can tell companies that cut corners based on the materials they're using. They make certain decisions on whatever it is, like Velcro colors, or hey, we're going to laser cut this instead of use webbing. It's a shortcut. Like there's little things you learn as you build and design gear. There's some shortcuts in there. And so like when I look at a piece of gear, I'm kind of dissecting it in my mind. I'm like, it's interesting that they made that decision to do that, because I know the cost of that versus,
So why was that made? Yeah.
Yeah. They made that decision because it goes together easy and it's less pieces, it's probably cheaper to make.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? From a production standpoint.
But margins are important,
of course.
So just as a consumer, you got to know. You should understand that when you're getting a product.
There's the thing that I like about being as small as I am right now is my customers have a direct line to me,
mm-hmm.
and so I'm very active on Instagram. If you DM me, I have no unread messages in my Instagram.
That gives me anxiety.
I respond to everything.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those things where it's like, I've stayed on top of it this long, I can't let it go.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if I'm not going to respond, it's gonna stack and stack. And then pretty soon I'll never, ever get to it. I don't want to be that guy who doesn't respond to my customers. I like to maintain that customer, relationship. And I've had a lot of customers provide great feedback on stuff.
It's a great way to keep your finger on the pulse.
And so I like listening to people who provide criticism and feedback, because all it does is help us improve our products.
Right.
I'm not going to discard anything. I take everything into consideration, and I rely heavily on the community,
the end user.
Yeah. It's end user focused. And now I've been working with a lot of these SOCOM units, and I'm talking to them on a daily basis, and they're using the gear, and they provide feedback, and I listen, and we make the changes, and we're constantly improving things. And that's why, especially now, like this week, I've released a lot of really weird products that are not.
Also, let's talk about them.
Are not industry, norm. It's not the industry norm. You know what I mean?
No, you were talking about one when you came through the door. I had to time you out. I was like, wait, I don't want to hear about this, but let's let everybody else hear about it too. Because when you say they're weird or it's not the industry norm, no, they're very specific for a very specific need. This is not a one size fits all.
Right.
You're not trying to outfit the LAPD in Tracer Tactical. Chest rigs. Yeah, that might be a cool contract to have. Don't get me wrong, but that's not who you're talking to.
I'm not going after military contracts. I'm not trying to win bids. I am trying to provide solutions that the guys using this stuff want, and need. Mm-hmm. And so my approach is end user up. Like if it's a good product, then the end user is going to vouch for it. I don't need to try and get in with the guy who's trying to sell the stuff to the unit, and now these guys are issued stuff that they don't even want or care about.
Right. The guys in the unit are going to tell them.
I want the guys buying the stuff themselves.
Yeah,
like the guys in the unit should be buying it themselves and then saying like, "Hey, what gear do you use?" I use this, and this is why. And so I've been lucky to work with a lot of these guys who are running these teams, and I get direct feedback from them, and that's how a lot of our products are developed.
Yeah, you just cut out all the fluff right in the middle.
Yeah, and that's what drives me the most. Like I literally get adrenaline while I'm building something. I'm so excited
because you're solving a problem.
I'm so excited to finish it, and it's hard for me to sit on something for a long time. I like to share it as quickly as I can. And then once I get that feedback, it's boom, production, on to the next thing. What problem can we solve next?
Yeah, what's next?
And it's all about, that's what I love doing. I love problem solving. I love filling the gaps in the market. One, because I'm not trying to just create another mag pouch, and
it's not a Me Too product.
I don't want a piece of the pie in that way. I want to plug the holes, and being small, and it allows me to move quickly. It allows me to be more, personal with the guys who are actually using it, and that's what I've been enjoying the most.
Yeah, there's a huge responsibility there too. To make sure you're providing a product that, I mean, these guys are putting their lives on the line.
Oh yeah, it's like I said, it's had me rethink our design and production, and just there's constantly things you can do to improve it, from material selection to the way something is constructed. Reinforce that thing, right here, bar tack it. You know what I mean? Like take the extra time to create a product that's going to last and not fall apart when the guy needs
when
it.
it counts. Yeah.
You know, so I'm just having, like, now that we're, you know, kind of like, you've heard my story and we're into present day, like, I'm having an absolute blast designing gear. I feel extremely blessed to be able to get up every day, go into my shop, tinker, talk to guys who are also passionate about this stuff. I've had a tremendous amount of help along the way. I have not done this by myself. There's several people in the industry that I lean on and that provide support and great feedback. You know, my wife would not exist, or my company would not exist without the support of her. And she allows me to focus, you know, because I have my responsibilities as a husband and a father. And, you know, now that I'm doing this full time, it's allowed me to focus more on that, because that's why we're all doing this. Owning my own business and providing for my family without having to rely on another man, you know what I mean, is the most liberating thing I've ever experienced. It's the modern day survival. You know, that I am providing for my family, and I get to do what I love. But you know, it took a lot of work to get here. I've been, I can say, you know, with pride that I've worked my ass off over the last couple of years. I've sacrificed sleep and hobbies and friendships and
fitness and
fitness,
time with the family sometimes.
Yeah, I need to get back in the gym. Like that's one thing that now that I'm doing this on my own, or I'm doing this full time, is when I was doing executive protection, I was like, you know, probably had about 20 pounds more muscle on me, you know,
I mean, you've been
eating
working
all the time. And now I'm like, you know.
But when's the last time you were on your surfboard?
Oh, I can't even tell you.
Yeah. How about the skateboard?
No, never.
Yeah. So
actually, no, I will skate to the school with my son.
Sometimes, yeah.
Because my son's 8 and, you know, like, but I don't take chances like I used to.
But you wouldn't.
I'm not going to try to bust out a 360 flip off a curb or something, like, you know what I mean?
No, I think it's important, man, that we're hearing this stuff. Because again, I've had lots of people sit in that chair and they have very similar stories about sacrifice and compromise and commitment and making tough decisions at tough times. And I think, you know, what we're looking at happening in this industry, which is why I wanted to have you, is because there's way more people in it now like you that are providing this end user product that's getting feedback from the end user, which is driving the industry in a much different way than it may have been driven before, which is mostly through big, huge corporations, government contracts, and this is the status quo. And guys like you are bucking that, and they're pushing back, not in an aggressive, loudmouth, you know, like look at me way. Just I'm providing a better product. You know, and I'm providing a product that can be improved upon constantly, that doesn't have to go through a lot of red tape. And you mentioned something there, I mean, just kind of in wrapping up here, just about like the obscure or, you know, weird, you use the word weird, but obscure stuff. I know this is what I was saying when we sat down, is there's constantly a new product being brought to market in some way. And I don't, you know, a lot of people look at it and go, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, what is that thing? Like, what? And you just mentioned like, you're working with top tier units that are looking for very specific things. And you have this distinct advantage over some of these other companies that are committed to these other things to do.
And I don't need to, I'm not worried about fulfilling a massive government contract. I'm not worried about.
That's not what you're chasing.
I don't have to get permission or buy-in from other partners in the company or the stakeholders who are thinking of the opposite thing that I'm thinking of. They're, you know, trying to see where they can cut costs. And a lot of people are like talking about raising their prices. And I mean, prices are going up in the industry for sure. I mean, all of our stuff is sourced and made here in the U.S.
It's a big deal.
And I would never ever consider taking it overseas. I just think that from a Berry compliance standpoint, which is like a term that's used, which allows you to obtain government contracts. And I'm not opposed to chasing government. That's not my focus. I just want to supply the end user with a product that does something that another product doesn't do and do it better. And so, yeah, if guys or units want to buy something because it fits a need that they have that another product isn't meeting, then I'm all for it. But it has made me think how I need to scale the company. Like as we grow, how do I maintain the time and the ability to continue to just tinker and
be innovative,
and just continue to try and innovate and plug those holes. I don't want to be running a massive company. If I want to be the guy testing stuff and out on the range with the guy that's going to be using it, and I want his feedback, and I want to see how we can change that and improve it. If it comes time to where I have to hire like a CEO to like run the business side of things, that's something that I'll need to explore.
Yeah, at that time. But for now, it's allowing you to provide for your family and do the things that you love. And it's giving you some flexibility and some freedom, work with cool people, feel fulfilled and contribute.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, man. So there's so many products, there's so many things out there. And if people want to find out more about it, they want to see it. You do a great job with your media. That's the other part about this is like with all the things you just talked about, like you managed to get great media out there for people to see, and you really present the product well, which is important.
Yeah.
People like to see cool shit. And I'm one of those guys, and I appreciate the work, behind the scenes that goes into making that happen.
Yeah.
That's not an easy thing to do. So where do they go to find and see the stuff?
I could definitely do a better job describing and showing things, I think, on my website, but that's I utilize Instagram pretty much. That's like my primary way to talk to my customers, my audience.
Well, it's direct, right? I mean, it's very immediate. Yeah.
I'm very, like I said, like
it's efficient.
Like I'm more active on Instagram than I am email, just because it's easier. And I'm a little old school in a way. Like I like to keep emails very formal. I'm not gonna.
That's that GDB.
I'm not gonna say, "Hey, dude." I'm always gonna address you by your name. Right. I'm gonna say hello, proper greeting.
There's nothing wrong with that, man. Yeah.
I just like
it's
to
weird,
keep emails
It's weird that you have to
formal.
say that, but it's very, very relevant. Yeah.
No, it's just I like to maintain a certain professionalism when it comes to that. Yeah. On Instagram, I definitely am me. I relax a little bit more. I'm a little informal. But yeah, I try to put out content that is very, it explains the reason why I did something or designed something a certain way. And I try to like get into the features. Obviously there's like time limits and things like that. And the attention span of somebody, I have to take those into consideration. Like I basically have 30 seconds to a minute to sell this product. Like, and then sometimes, I'll check like 3 boxes of like 6 of something that it can do. But then when if they're sold on the product, when I can check 3 boxes and all of a sudden they learn they can do more, it's like that added bonus.
Yeah, it's a bonus.
You know what I mean? So it's like I try to continue, and one of the things that I've had to realize is like I'm constantly getting new followers, and so you have to re-explain some of your really old products. And as someone who's putting out a lot of products and moving quickly, I have to take that into consideration. Like I have to continue to bring up the old stuff and re-explain and maintain patience with people because
everybody wants it's the new stuff. They want it now.
I'm saying the same story over and over and over and over again, and I got to do it in a way. But I mean, I have to kind of like flick that switch in my mind. It's like,
who's your
talk
audience?
about it like it's your first time talking about it, and you're showing it to somebody in person who's never seen this before, because that's the truth. There are people who are going to see this video who have never heard of me, who have never seen the stuff we do. And it's been very rewarding and fulfilling when someone, DMs me and was like, how did I not know about you?
Yeah.
Like, I just found you and I started going through all your posts. Like, dude.
Right.
And that to me is like very, very validating, because it's like I'm doing something right. You know,
You are, man. I mean, there's 100%, and that's why I was excited to talk to you again. Coming back to SHOT Show, all the things you're doing, a couple new releases this week. And so many exciting things happening. Part of SHOT Show is making new friends, getting new contacts, hearing feedback from people you haven't heard it from, seeing other products the way people are doing, compare, contrast, and so I'm sure you're going back already. Your head's just full of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Next week you'll be out in the shop all day long.
I started carrying a notebook.
Yeah.
Just because I think writing something down, kind of like burns that into your brain a little bit better than typing it in your phone. You know, we're looking at our phones all day long.
Yeah, old school. Yeah.
Writing something down and having that notebook to where you can just flip back to it.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm constantly trying to explain stuff, and it's easier for me to draw something than it is for me to try and explain it.
So did you fill up the pages this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great show. I've been talking a lot, but for me, SHOT Show, what I enjoy most about SHOT Show is seeing all the new friends that I've made throughout the year in person, because you basically create all these friends
digitally
through social media, and you don't even know what they look like.
You can't recreate the human interaction.
No. So I've had people come up to me who I've become friends with online that when I see their name, I think of their little avatar.
I know it's crazy. I know you by your Instagram handle.
Yeah.
That's, I feel bad. And I'm looking at their name tag and I'm trying to put it all together.
And some people are wearing, I'm not wearing my thing, but some people are wearing different, they got their pass from someone else. You don't know who they are.
Yeah, it's got somebody else's company's name on it. I'm like, I'm sorry.
But then you're like, hey, I'm so-and-so. You're like, oh, no way.
It's the best part.
And it sucks because 5 days or 4 days is not enough time. One, to see everything, but another just to mix it up with the people who have helped you along the way, you've become friends with. And I'm constantly talking to these people online, and it's such a huge networking event that that's for me. Yes, it's exciting showing off your new products, but for me, it's more about connecting with the people who I've become friends with over the years and seeing them, Yeah,
I think that's unique to the smaller companies with the humans behind them. And I think I'm hoping, people who don't know the story or haven't heard the story now, take that story, because like I said, I think they want to know who's behind it, and they'll understand, the product better, because now they'll understand you better. Man, I cannot thank you enough. I know it's been a long week, a lot of energy expended. You came up here off the floor to spend time with me today. I'm honored to have you. It was so good to hear your story.
Yeah, man. It's been awesome. Thank you for inviting me onto the podcast. I was looking forward to it. For when you hit me up, I was like, I know it was awesome to meet you at California Range Weekend. That's a whole nother event, and building that community. And again, I think that we need to do more of that stuff. It's just getting together, and the community, especially in California, is a lot tighter and bigger than most people think.
They don't realize, yeah. I'm trying to send the message. I know people think it's still weird out there. Laws and stuff like that are a little bit weird in comparison, but the people aren't. I mean, the community is strong.